heads up.
Okay.
So, but we're going to go ahead and wait just another couple minutes for people to join in.
Yes, it is. Mitz says hi, Aaron.
What's up? You still have my CD. I forgot how badly these sleeves keep their shape.
Yes, it is.
Where are you seeing messages?
So at the bottom of your screen, like where the mute stop video participants, there's a chat button in the middle. You click that, but it's coming up in my chat.
I see. Yeah, well, it's because we hate you. That's why you downloaded it.
Jeez.
Whenever I go to look at anything, it freezes my beautiful face.
That makes sense.
Great thing about streaming is it's only from the up, so I'm just gonna not bother putting on garb pants or most of my belt accessories.
Yeah, I'm wearing cheater garb pants. There's no way I was putting leg wraps on to sit at a desk.
Well, I figured if I'm going through that much trouble to paint up, I might as well just grab everything at that point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Plus, I mean,
But nobody.
I don't know the
seem
next
like
time
that.
I'll paint up, and that's an odd thought too.
That's fair.
Well, you're not entirely wrong.
About this is I'm not going to be running around, which means that my bracers don't have to be super tight to keep from slipping.
Nice. How do we look, Mitz?
Yeah, there we go.
Is there a link that I can use to invite people to this stream as text only? Because I might send this to a couple of people from the LARP that I'm dressed up from and just pat our audience a little bit.
Is
believe
text
that is a
only?
question for
No.
Yeah.
But
There we go.
they can. I sent you the link there. They can watch it there. There's a lot of microphone smacking going on over there, Nick.
Yeah, I'm typing.
And somehow you are Nathan. I don't know how your name shows Nathan.
From the link from the email.
Ah, that's why he was saying there's so many Nathans. All right, so if you, right click on his picture?
Yeah, you right click on your video and you can change your name.
Okay. All right, so we have someone that just joined. We're still just getting set up here. We'll start the panel here in the next couple of minutes. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask them to both attendees and panelists so that everybody can see the questions. What is that top thing on the wall you have behind you there?
That candelabra.
Yay, I win.
Oh, okay, I see it. I don't know why I assumed it was a weapon of some kind.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of weapons there.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like a weapon of some kind.
Well,
Assassin's Creed.
I mean, a batleth doesn't really look like a weapon to me, so there's that.
That's fair.
The D&D minis on the wall behind me.
Is that what that is? That's awesome.
The little shelf with D&D minis.
Yeah, I couldn't tell exactly what was there. That's awesome.
I figure if I was going to stream from somewhere about a art panel, should be
Heck yeah.
Not a good background.
Horatio over there.
Yeah, last night I was like, oh, I should get a banner and put it in the background. I was like, you know what? I don't own a banner. Never mind.
Lame.
I know.
I don't own a banner, nor do I own a dining room table. So the future side of the Dungeons and Dining Room
Dungeons and Dining Room.
my stream for my streaming location for AradaniCon. So it works.
There you go.
All right, well, I don't see any reason to delay any further. So welcome everybody to AradaniCon, and specifically to our little panel here. We're going to talk about ourselves and in general LARPing and how it can help improve your life. So I'll start by just a quick introduction of myself, and then we'll go around and everybody will introduce themselves. So again, thank you guys for joining. If you want to check anything else out that's going on, it's just AradaniCon, and you can see the full schedule on there. So my name is Vander. I once upon a time was just a simple shipwright, but it's been about 7 years since I've put any nails into a ship. During a small attack on our town, it was discovered that I'm much better at swinging a sword than I've ever been at swinging a hammer. So from there, when we practiced on my sword and my combat skills, it was quickly learned that I can also lead troops. And today, I am the voice of the town's militia. I am the leader of our armed combatants, and I also lead a small group in search of cures. When it's not the weekend, my name is Nathan. I work in life insurance. I'm a systems admin, and I have a 7-year-old daughter. And in my spare time, when I'm not fighting, I do a lot of board gaming and computer gaming. Next, I'm going to let Dimfna introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Dimfna. I'm a Khajiit. So I grew up on a caravan with my lovely family until we got attacked by elves because we may or may not have freed a couple of the slaves they had. Well, anyway, I had to run away, and I ended up in Dirty Marion about, I don't know, 7 years ago. And I've been there pretty much ever since. So my real life name is Patricia. I'm actually a pharmacy tech. When I'm not fighting, it's usually video games I'm into, but I'm into a little bit of everything. I like hiking and art, all kinds of things. I guess I'll hand that off to you then.
Okay. My name is Gorath Steelhide, former bodyguard of the mayor of the town of Vi, and once a member of the race called the Blighted, a strong race of berserkers, very similar to what other people call orcs, until the disease that caused it was, some would say cured, I would say taken by the Artifexian Saint Lucy, and it turned me into the pink, fleshy, non-regenerative thing you see before you now. In real life, my name is Nicholas, call me Nick. I'm an EMT. I've been foam fighting for about, oh gosh, I think this would make year 5 or 6. The character that I'm dressed as is actually not from Belagarth like the other two, but from a game that is now unfortunately closed its doors called Ides, which was my first actual character plot-driven LARP and not just flavor text for swinging sticks around. But he's my most developed character, so he's the one I picked for this panel.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us about your first experience in getting into LARPing?
Yeah, my first experience was I was hang on. My girlfriend is working from home, and even though y'all have been picking up on her for the last however long, she's upset that she's picking up on me now. So yes, I'm going upstairs.
Sure. Dymphna, do you want to talk about your first experience, your aha moments while he migrates?
Absolutely. So let's see. When I very first entered the sport, I had a sports injury from volleyball, actually. So I didn't start out really fighting very much until he's a really good friend of mine now. A guy named Phoenix got me to spar him one-on-one for a while. So I got comfortable and got into the community, but that's the first thing that really stuck out was people helping me still enjoy the sport and being very considerate.
And when did you first discover Dymphna, the character she is today?
Oh gosh, Dymphna took me a long time to get to. So there's several different people who play different kinds of monsters in the sport, and we have a goblin that's been doing it for 20 plus years, and I watched him play his character a lot, and I respect it a lot. I love all the things he got into and how much fun it could be, and I knew I wanted to be a creature, but I also knew I didn't fit the bill to be a goblin. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up picking Khajiits because at the time I was playing Morrowind and I liked it a lot. And that was the first race I really got into with their lore and things. And so a friend of mine was like, well, if you like it so much, why don't you just put it into your game? It's like, well, I mean, if I hate it, I guess I can just not do it. And I got into it really, really quickly. A friend of mine does special effects makeup, so he did my makeup the first time and told me where to get more, and ever since it's been Dymphna all the way.
I guess I'll go ahead and go now that I've gotten resituated up here. My first experience with Belagarth was at Home Opener 5 or 6 years ago, and of course I had seen the Elmington Park LARPers is what everybody else that I had knew at the time called them, but they had been right across the street from the church that my grandparents attended for years. And so whenever I'd go to church with my grandparents, I'd walk out and I'd see all of these people swinging fake swords at each other, and I was like, oh man, that looks like the coolest. And then of course everybody else in high school knew about them too, because they were kind of a fixture. And so, you know, the running joke in my friend group was that one day they were all gonna go out, because several of my friends were football players, and one day they were all gonna go out and just like roll everybody. And even back then, before I even set foot on the field, I was like, I don't think that's gonna go very well for you, but please try, so I could laugh. To this day, I'm still the only one of my old friend group who has attended Dirty Marion, with the exception of my buddy Leland. And basically the way it happened was home opener was coming up. I didn't have anything to do that day, and I messaged him and I said, hey, we're going to Elmington Park to go play with the LARPers. And he was like, all right, rad. My first experience with Gorath and with Ides was earlier last year. It was the game's second season, and I had a friend at the time who we had kind of a friendly, kind of a bitter rivalry, given our thoughts on our two games, because I did not think that a character LARP without the full contact nature of Belagarth would be any fun or any kind of challenge for me. And my friend rolled her eyes at Belagarth's lack of cohesive central lore and kind of lack of plot. So it was very kind of theater kids versus jocks for a little bit. But what wound up happening is I wound up trying their game out. I really enjoyed it. But Gorath himself actually started as an exercise in min-maxing, because one of the racial traits was 2 extra hit points in every limb, and the ability to regenerate lost hit points if you weren't in combat or if you were in bleed out shortly before dying. So I took that and combined that with 5 years of full contact foam fighting experience, and kind of made myself a powerhouse. But Gorath didn't really develop as a character until I talked with staff and I said, hey, I think I painted myself into a corner because I didn't approach this the right way. Can I change up this character a little bit? And what they wound up doing was taking away the blight, which was this ancient magical disease that made the blighted powerful and basically immortal. And so they took that away, and that kind of was going to become the central point of my character arc. Unfortunately, the game closed before it could really happen.
Nice. I first got into Belagarth, the full contact sword fighting, many years ago when I was going to college. There's a girl I fancied who participated, and she asked me to participate with her. So of course, that sounds awesome. Cute girls and sword fighting just go hand in hand. The group I joined with up there didn't really jive well with me. So I did not participate very much in Illinois, where I first started fighting. I really ended up just fighting in the sidelines, actually mostly my backyard. So I loved the organization of it. I loved the rule set. It wasn't just friends hitting each other. There was set rules, set expectations of combat. So I started just doing that with friends. I had a good group of people who were interested and did it pretty regularly. Then I ended up moving to Tennessee, and I was looking for things to do. So I went on meetup.com looking for things to do, and I saw that there was another group that played the same game down in Tennessee. So that's when I first joined. I got with the Tennessee group, and I've been playing ever since. I felt pretty welcome from the very beginning in Tennessee. In Illinois, it was not so much that way, but down here in Tennessee, it just really clicked. I got along with the people that were out there every week. During the summers, they do Thursday and Sunday practices, and the Thursday practices is a much smaller group of people. They're really focused on very specific aspects. Some Thursdays will focus on fighting, others it'll be specifically like strategies. But what really happens is because it's a smaller group, you really get to know people. So that's when I really started to feel welcome. I was the new guy, and they spent the time getting to know me, and I spent that time getting to know them as well. As far as like the first time I really felt in character, I don't know that I've really had a true like, oh, this is me moment. I'm a human Viking, so there's not a whole lot of role play involved in portraying that. Put on the right clothing, and you're pretty much good to go. But I do find that there are small little nuances that I can build into my character, or who I am when I fight. And those have just been slowly picked up over time. But I don't know that I've ever had a specific moment that I was like, okay, I'm officially Vander, and this is who I am. Dymphna, do you want to start us off by talking about some of the things that you've learned or skills you've developed through being in Belagarth or other LARP communities that have really helped you in your regular life?
Sure. I think I talked about this the other day a little bit, that one of the things that it really taught me, as odd as it may be, is failing is not only okay. As long as you learn from it, it's a good thing. Like that is how you grow. You fail and then you learn what didn't work and you move on. So growing up, I was pretty exceptional at school and sports, and there was a lot expected of me. And then as an adult, that kind of slowed down, and there was a lot that was really hard for me because I should just get this. It should just be easy for me. But the world doesn't work that way, and it took me a while to figure that out. I did learn a lot of practical skills. Like, I'd never messed with a sewing machine in my life, and now I've made several different kinds of sets of garb. I can make, if I can look at it, I can figure out how to make it. And that's a lot of fun. That was really cool. It's helped me get back into painting. I've done a lot more of that since I've been fighting as well. It's also helped me kind of find myself. So after becoming Dymphna, I get into character really easy, and it's acting the part. But as I got into being her, a lot of the things I figured out was it was just me. I was just afraid to do that. This isn't socially acceptable, I don't think, or I'm embarrassed to do this. But well, if it's Dymphna, it's okay, right? So as I played her and gotten farther, I kind of figured out that I just wore a mask so I could be myself. And after I got through that, like, it was kind of neat to go back and look and say, look at all this stuff that I did. You know, Dymphna is me. So this is still things I did, and that helped me a lot.
Awesome. How about you, sir?
Dymphna took mine.
It's okay. We can learn the same thing.
Because I was in a very similar boat. Very early on in my Belagarth career, it kind of I was very much like the gifted kid. And then there was a lot of family drama too between me and my younger brother. My younger brother was kind of frequently in trouble, and so not only was I the smart gifted kid, I also had to be the good successful kid. And so when things did not come easily to me, I would get very frustrated, and I would burn out very quickly. And it was my first event. I think it was Equinox 2014. I entered my first tournament, and I got rolled round one. Because at that point I'd been fighting for less than a year, and I think I found out later that I had been paired up in the bracket with somebody who'd been fighting for 3 or 4. So they had the muscle memory and the training, and I did not. And I was real frustrated because I was like, why the hell did I enter that tournament? I got rolled round one. Like I got maybe one shot off in 2 rounds of combat before I just got pulverized. And at the time I was pledging with Vorshin, which is my current unit. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. And during the kind of the talk that ensued with the other unit members and my unit leaders, it kind of, I reached the personal conclusion that a lot of my frustration had to do with a lot of that gifted child syndrome, and a lot of the pressure that had been placed on me in my younger life to be, great and successful. And so Belagarth was kind of the sport that taught me that it's okay to suck at something when you start out, because everybody does, and you shouldn't just expect to roll out with no experience and be able to go toe to toe with people who have had 3 or 4 years of experience. I also, much like Dimphna said, I have picked up a lot of skills from Belagarth that I wouldn't otherwise have. I've done some leatherworking. I've made some armor. And then something that's kind of, I think, unique to LARPs with plot like Ides, my character Gorath and his personal journey was actually wound up being used as almost a therapeutic tool while I was working through some stuff in real life. I talked it over with my therapist, and I'm like, I don't know how it happened, but somehow this fantasy character has mirrored my reality, but in a way that is much more manageable and controllable, because a lot of it still boils down to factoids and skills on a sheet of paper. And so kind of working through his story helped me work through my own, which I thought was neat, and which is something that I don't think a lot of people think of when they think of LARPing, but it's not wholly unusual, because I have friends who have used their LARP as therapy tools as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to take a minute to address Anita's comments in the panel. She mentions, I just want to say how just amazing and how cool it is that you guys have dressed up. You're not just talk about costuming, you're in it. You made the effort to either make up or to get into your truck. But sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes it's not even a one-person job, and that's just incredible. Thank you so much for your effort and very fun discussion.
Oh, I think we lost
Vander?
Yeah, I think we lost me.
I found him. He's right there.
Oh, am I back?
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Awesome. Can you guys see me still?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I can't see myself. There we are. Okay. So Anita's question, talking about dressing up and going out. And that's one of those things I think we develop over time. And we'll talk about more when we get to like culture and stuff, but I wanted to highlight it now, is that dressing up and then going into public is a very hard thing for some people. Honestly, for me, it's kind of come naturally. I'm one of those people that when I'm in public, I don't really care. My philosophy is I'll never see these people again. So who cares if I make an ass out of myself? But for a lot of people, that is hard. It is hard to go out and dress up and stop at a gas station to get some water or to get gas before an event. I can remember specifically a time where Dimphna and I were traveling back from Illinois. It was a long day of fighting. It was late at night. It was probably 9 or 10 o'clock. She's still in her makeup. She's taken a little bit of the costuming off, but her face is still very much painted up. And we walk into the gas station, and this guy is just staring her down. And as we're leaving, she's like, man, that guy was giving me such weird looks. And I'm like, Dimphna, you got your face paint on. You look a little odd.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it just becomes so natural that you forget. You're like, oh yeah, this is just who I am on the weekends. It's not a big deal. Some of the other things that I've learned from being in this, I got into leadership really quickly after joining the sport. Our sport is a very volunteer-based group. We don't get paid to make this stuff happen. There's not really any income in it. It's free to play, and a lot of the events and stuff we run are as close to at cost as possible. So there's no money in it for people who are running it. We organize events upwards of 500 people. We have to rent public space. We have to feed those people, and it's a lot to organize. And I got into the leadership roles within my first year, and then officially into one of the elected positions within my second year of doing this. And you learn a lot as leadership skills go. I put Dirty Marion on my resume because I feel I've got enough tangible skills from organizing and leading people that it's worth talking about in a job interview. I don't think people understand how much effort it is to organize 500 nerds into any sort of situation, specifically getting them all into one area and feeding them. That's probably the hardest part. But then making sure that they're safe that whole time and organizing all of the volunteers to make that happen. Another thing I've learned, I have no fear of public speaking anymore. Doing panels because of it has helped, but also having to address hard issues that come up during game and being that person that they expect to handle that issues if we have any kind of issues on the field. And they come up, it's social gatherings. There's always going to be somebody who rubs somebody the wrong way, and then having to deal with that in a group setting, or just to talk about, we have annual meetings where we talk about, where all the money is, where we see the group going if we want to change rules and all that, and having to talk in front of 60 plus people who have spent their whole life doing this. They're very passionate about what we're talking about. You get over that fear really quick. You really got to get into it and discuss stuff. Another skill I've really developed through fighting is self-control. We talk about people rubbing you the wrong way. In an organization as big as ours, there's 500 people at a weekend event. You're not going to be friends with everybody, and you might actually not like some of the people actively. And being in physical combat with strangers, or specifically people that you may not enjoy, and getting hit, maybe a hit you felt was too hard, or maybe getting smacked in the face, which is actively against our rules, but it does happen. It happens on accident a lot, but again, when you're out there in 90-degree weather, sweating, somebody just comes up out of nowhere and hits you in the face. Self-control is a real thing that you can you have to have power over if you're going to go out there. And more so, and I keep harping on the leadership, but more so when you're in a leadership role, how you act during those situations becomes the new acceptable way to act on the field. So you have to just be there with yourself and act perfect, because whatever wrongdoing you do, people will highlight and call out or use as well, I did this and so did Vander, so it's fine. So I've really learned to be extremely level-headed in any situation, which helps at work. It helps when raising my daughter, who sometimes is a pain in the butt. It helps when her cats do crazy things and I have to not get mad at the cats and talk to, her and the cats and try to talk through things. But mostly just that taking a deep breath first, analyzing the situation before moving forward, honestly has helped me a ton in just being a parent. So I'm very glad that that's something I've picked up. So we've got another question, and I would like to encourage people to we're going to take a short question and answer time before we move into some of the other things we wanted to discuss today. So
I'd like to take the torch and talk a little bit about kind of that dressing up in public, because it is it's interesting for me to think about, because it's, if your first foray into dressing up in public is hang on, I'm gonna plug up real quick. If your first foray into dressing out in public is Dirty Marion, it can be a little bit weird and nerve-wracking, but I've been attending comic conventions and anime conventions for about 5 years before I ever started coming out to Dirty Marion and doing Bellegarth and doing other LARP-related activities. And there's just nothing quite as surreal as going to the McDonald's across the street from the hotel parking lot and seeing a guy dressed up as Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII ordering a Big Mac.
Mm-hmm.
The looks of everybody in the kitchen, no one's getting any work done because they're like, what's going on? Why does he have a sword? But it is definitely something to consider and be mindful of, kind of going in, because it's, especially if you're like me and you've been doing similar things for 10 years, I think it is definitely worth giving a thought to the people who are at their first event wearing their first piece of garb and, you know, sweating in anxiety in Taco Bell.
Right. I would also like to say to Anita, because she did say something after all that, thank you for recognizing everybody's hard work. I know like Mike and Paul have worked really hard on this, and so far it looks like everything's going great, and we definitely did our best to put a lot of work into this, so thank you for saying all that.
yeah, specifically, thank you, Mike, for helping us kind of switch this around last minute. We were gonna do this in the voice chat and do the video, and realize that we didn't have an easy way to talk to each other, as well as moderate a open voice chat with the group. So I appreciate Mike last minute switching this around for us and letting us borrow his channel to do this on. So anybody else got any additional questions before we move on? Mike asked a question about how we encourage new people, specifically introverts. I think we can kind of cover that later, once we get into the culture and the support systems. But so Aaron, you kind of addressed the support systems earlier, talking about your unit and how they've helped. You want to kind of kick us off with talking about that?
Yeah, sure. So, oh gosh. So it's definitely interesting. Like I said, I came to Dirty Marion after being involved in the anime convention scene for about 5 years. And so I kind of thought I knew how making nerdy friends worked, but I was so very wrong. I mean, at conventions, like, you have your con family. I have people that I look forward to seeing every year, but I see them once, maybe twice a year if I'm lucky. And unless you are lucky enough to meet somebody local to your area at a convention, you kind of, whatever group of friends you go with is the group of friends you leave with, you know, a few outlying exceptions. We've got friends all the way up in Baltimore and DC that we message regularly, but we haven't seen them since last summer at AradaniCon. Whereas with Bellegarth, because of the way it's set up, you make friends very quickly with your local fighters, your local realm. And if you wind up joining what's called a unit, which is kind of the way I usually describe it, is the group within a group. Like, a realm is the local area, a unit is a group of friends who fight together, and that can be central to one realm, as is the case with my unit, Vorshin. We've got most of our people in or around Middle Tennessee. We've got a handful of people far flung. We've got a member in New York. We've got a guy in the Navy, so I think he's in Virginia right now. But for the most part, of our 20-some members, most of us are Durgamarian fighters. But that group has rapidly become my family of choice. And they have helped me a lot through a lot of personal crises. And without getting into too much detail, because it's not my story to tell, they've helped a lot of we've all helped each other through a lot of some really dark stuff. And even on the flip side of we've helped each other with good things as well. I officiated a wedding for one of my unit members. I got ordained online, dressed up as my Belagarth character, who is a vampire, teeth and all, and officiated this wedding. And it was absolutely ridiculous because I had the fangs in and I had just the worst possible lisp because I couldn't talk around the teeth. And so it really is an experience unlike anything that I'd experienced before. Just the way that we all love on and support each other, not just in a shield wall on the battlefield, but out of game as well.
How about you, Dymphna?
Unit-wise, I've been a part of a couple. But something I will say, as far as all of them have been for me, it's a closer knit part of the family. Like, my realm is my family. I will always claim that. And I have watched our realm take care of so many people. I've watched them. There was a family that lost everything in a fire, and a week later they had everything to move into a new house, and they hadn't paid for hardly any of it. I watched us raise money for somebody whose child passed away, and they couldn't afford to have a funeral. Like, we have done all kinds of things like that, and it's amazing. But as far as a unit goes, usually it's like you said, the close-knit part of the family. Like, we go and hang out and get dinner after practice, and we talk to each other on an almost daily basis and hang out. It's great. It's almost like a group of siblings or cousins, and you just, tease with each other but support each other. And it is a thing of knowing, I know they're going to be there. I can pick up my phone tomorrow and I know there's a set amount of people I could call that they would be there in a heartbeat. It doesn't matter. There is also something to be said for a unit that learning how to fight side by side with somebody is actually a really intimate thing. Like, knowing how to move and react with each other and know each other on that kind of level, it is amazing. And there's not a whole lot else like it. That's definitely a big part for a unit to me. Let's see, it looks
Yeah,
like
I would like to
couple of
touch
different
on
questions.
I'd like to touch on the community helping each other. So a lot of what you're going to hear us talk about is going to sound a lot like your group of friends, right? Who doesn't have friends that they can rely on? Who doesn't have a group of friends that they can talk to and meet up with regularly? I think sort of how Belagarth is different from just an ordinary group of friends. One, it's an ever expanding group. We have people constantly come out and join us who become just good friends. It's not like an ordinary, at least in my adult life, I find it hard to meet people outside of the sport. I don't make a lot of close friends from work, and outside of that, cons, I've never really struck off with somebody at a con. Never been more of a sideline attendee anyways. But there's not a lot you do. I'm not going to run into a random person at the park while out on a stroll or playing at the park with my daughter. The only place I'm going to meet people is if I become a friend of one of my daughter's parents. So I like that Belagarth introduces a regular flow of interesting adults that we can meet with. But beyond that, Dymphna talking about the people whose house have burnt down and who have lost a child. These aren't just their friends who are helping out. These are people who can relate to such a loss and have the one thing in common. They have the game in common, but they can understand the struggle, and they may be better off and willing to help out. So they may have gotten help. I shouldn't say may have. They got help from people they may have never met, or maybe had only seen on the field or an event in passing. But when people in the community are in need, they get help. Tons of people are willing to reach out and help. And I think that's one of the best things about the community. One of the other things I love this, as far as like the support system goes and people being helpful, when I go out and fight, I'm not afraid to bring my daughter with. We fight in a public park with a playground, close, but not immediately. You know, we don't fight right next to the playground. But I'm not afraid to have my daughter go off and play at the playground, because I know there are so many eyes willing to help out, and they're not willing to parent, but they're willing to say, hey, you know, isn't that Vander's kid? Maybe we should say something to Vander. Or most of the time, the parents will cycle through and we'll take breaks. Hey, I'm going to go to the park for an hour. I'll take all the kids, and then we cycle out. So there's constantly someone right there with the kids, pushing on the swings, playing tag with them, while the rest of us get to enjoy our Sunday by fighting or just catching up with friends, and not having to have kids at your ankle. If you've been a parent, you know that, you know, even just a couple minutes away from your kids sometimes can be great. So I've loved that the community as a whole is open to helping with that, and everybody brings their kids out. It is not an adults only kind of thing. So
I have something else, something that I kind of thought about while Vander was talking about people who are part of this community receiving help from people that they've barely interacted with. They're also probably receiving help from people who don't even know their real name.
Yeah.
There are people at the field who I only know them by their character name, by their field name. And if somebody were to come up to me and say, hey, I'm here looking for Steve, I'm like, who is Steve? Oh, you probably know him as Orcris the Invincible. I go, oh yeah, him. He's over there. He's the guy with the big shield. And I just think that's neat.
Yeah.
another thing I wanted to touch base on about units. So to better explain, realm is going to be the region in which you fight. So ours is Middle Tennessee, and that realm or region is called Durdamarian. It's a name they came up with many years ago when they invented it. Within that, again, going back to, you're not going to be friends with everybody out there. Units are kind of, for lack of a better term, they're the cliques. You know, these are the kind of people I could get really comfortable with. They're the people that when looking to travel or looking to go out to dinner, if there's, you know, 2 restaurants, you're going to go out to dinner with the people in your unit. If I'm traveling, I'm going to try to fill my car up first with people in my unit. And then from there, you know, add additional people. But units aren't so cliquey that we don't talk to each other. I live with people in a different unit. Aaron's in a different unit. Divna is in my unit currently, but she's looking to go to another one. And we all get along great. But to kind of talk about something else I've learned through the fighting world, and an aspect I love about it is the unit I'm part of is called Thurisaz, and it's a very open unit. The main thing people know about Thurisaz is we don't have any rules on who can join. Anybody can be part of Thurisaz. You just have to ask to be in, and that's it. We'll talk about it, but you're in. That has kind of allowed it to become a home for new fighters. And for lack of a better word, sometimes the misfits, people who don't feel at home anywhere else, know that they can find a home within Thurisaz. And when we have the new fighters and the misfits all combined, what you seem to find as well in the veteran fighters in that unit is a skill set built to handle those types of people. You handle people who need development. And we're all a group of nerds. So we get those who need more than just combat development. We need those who need social development. We need those who need help just kind of getting their life together. And that's one of the things that I've loved about Thursas specifically, is it really is a way for people to grow. I like when we get new young fighters in our group, because it's a way as I've learned a lot in my life, and I like to be able to share those kind of experiences with newer fighters. Be like, hey, you know, you don't need to come fight this weekend because I know that you're going to miss work if you do. And, you know, maybe you don't need to travel to Illinois because I don't think, you know, you don't have the money or the funds right now. And it's not wise for you to pour your every loving minute into this game. And sometimes being that hard friend that says, you know, are you making the right choice to play this game? We get a lot of passionate people who will think of nothing else except playing. And we get a lot of people who need to learn a little bit of social interaction. So it's good to be there with them and say, hey, you know, I think you offended that person. You should maybe consider apologizing, or hey, let's talk about how you could have approached that situation better. And I like that our unit allows that and kind of fosters that in the leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next thing on the list is cultural highlights, differences between practices and events. Did one of you guys want to kick it off?
I'll kick that one off because that kind of ties into kind of other games as well. Because when we were planning this panel, I was the only one who had LARP experience really outside of Belagarth, and it really is. It's two very different cultures, but I think that both of them have helped me improve my real life in vastly different but equally important ways. So, as far as Belagarth is concerned, you've got practices which are weekly or bi-weekly, or I've heard of some realms that even have tri-weekly practices. And it's everybody from a local area getting together and fighting and getting better so that when you come to events, which happen pretty much all throughout the year, but mostly between the months of March and October, season. You've got anywhere from 500 to thousands of people getting together and fighting, and that's when you'll really see units that have members in multiple realms coming out in full force. You'll see people will bring out their biggest and best garb. It's really it's an excuse to show off your looks, as for some people, as much as it is an excuse to test your fighting prowess, to see if you're just kind of a big fish in a small pond, so to speak, at your weekly practices. And then, on the other hand, more plot-driven LARPs, they don't really have cohesive practices, because you'll have people coming to these events from all over a given area, and you'll have I think, more events at a specific campsite than you will at Belagarth. For example, Dirtamarion only puts on 2 camping events a year. Ides had 5 or 6. And they'll all get together and they'll tell a story, and that'll kind of be some of the only times you see that particular group of people, unless you happen to live close enough to be like, hey, I want to get together and do some combat practice before the next event in a few weeks.
I think we lost you, Nick.
Stay on that.
I lost Aaron for a second there.
Oh. I think to add to that, like, practicing is really cool because, I don't know, you kind of get this rival thing with your friends. It's not quite that strong of a word, but you push each other to keep going. When people get discouraged, you help each other, you learn from each other, you keep this real sense of community and bettering each other, which is really neat, especially to have the ability to go and do that every week. Sometimes it's just nice to know that these people give a flip to do all that. So it's nice to be able to go and do that. Events, though, you stole a lot of what I was going to say, Aaron. It's a chance to see if you're a big fish in a small pond or if you're actually that gifted of a fighter. But you learn a lot from that too, because the people up north fight different than people from here, and the people out west fight different from the people out north. Like, you can pick up all kinds of things like that. Traveling and doing weekend events reminds me a lot of when I used to do conventions. You get ideas and you see different people, and you might only see those people 2 or 3 times a year, but it is so good to see them when you can. And it's a lot of fun. The culture that comes with events is an entirely different world packed into one weekend. Like, you can forget about the real world legitimately because you can lose yourself in hanging out with people and the fights, and people that get into characterization is really great. Like, some of the monsters and some of the games they play and stunts they pull just to be silly is wonderful. But it's a whole different world. But yeah, that's part of the reason I enjoy events so much and traveling, is meeting those people and doing new things and just being able to take a break from the real world.
All right, I know we have more on our agenda we wanted to talk about, but we've already filled up a full hour. So I want to do a quick closing for those who have other panels they want to go to. And then I think we'll continue talking. We're going to go over our hour. I know there's not anybody scheduled to be right up right now. But for those who do have something else they want to go to, in short, if you guys want to join us, if this is something you're interested in, I posted our links in the chat. NashvilleFoamFighting.com is going to be the easiest way to find out more about us. We also are on Facebook, which is where we are the most active. Facebook groups, Demarian. Again, the spelling and the link is in the chat. There's other LARPs and other groups out there. Specifically, we had someone talking about nationwide. What other games, or are there groups out by them wherever they are within the country? The answer is yes. Belagarth is the game we play, but by no means am I saying it's the best or the only game you should play. You can learn these skills and have your life impacted by playing any of those games. So I encourage you to go out there, look to see what's available, and just get out there and maybe add a little bit of LARP or combat into your life. It's a great skill. It's a great group of people you're going to meet. It gets you outside.
God, I miss outside.
That's really all I got to say about that. What's that?
I said, God, I miss outside.
Yeah. It's been hard. It's been hard not being able to go out every Sunday and hit people.
Fortunately, I'm rooming with one of my unit mates, so I'm going to knock on her door and be like, hey, let's go hit each other.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
looks like Mike's
Mike.
got to run to another panel. Mike, do we still get keep the this running though? Correct? You're not going to close it down on us. Awesome, cool. All right, so we still have the channel. We'll keep it up. We can keep talking about it. The one thing I wanted to touch on in the culture, the highlight between practices and events, is that and I talked about it earlier, but volunteering really is the key to keeping this game going. We couldn't do this without volunteers. I mentioned earlier that we don't have any money to pay people, so this is all run by volunteers. If we didn't have people who were interested, were capable of hosting in 500 people events, we wouldn't be able to have this. And we try to recruit volunteers, obviously from the community. We have people who are interested in the game, who are spending time running things. And sometimes that running things isn't great. Sometimes it's cleaning toilets after a weekend long event. But most of the time it's fun stuff. It's, serving food that's been prepared to all your friends, having them walk through the line and just being able to see everybody, their smiles on their faces. It's great. Sometimes it's just being, we have what's called heralds. They're kind of like referees, just to make sure that everybody's being safe while in combat. Sometimes it's just being a referee. So if this is something you're interested in, I would also encourage you to spend some of your fun time helping it flourish. I don't expect everybody to jump in day one and spend a large portion of their time volunteering for the community, but just know that things like this can't continue to exist without people volunteering their time. And that's going to be true in any large community you're part of. Even in the con world, there are plenty of people who need to volunteer their time to make things happen. All the panels are, I shouldn't say all, because you get some of the big cons where it's paid, but most of the panels are going to be volunteer based. Unless you're a leader in your field and people want to hear you talk, you got to volunteer your time. You got to volunteer all the setup and running of things. So I just encourage people to volunteer and understand that is a large part of the community.
And to add to that, like you said, you don't have to do it the whole weekend. Like if I had a volunteer for a set 2 hours every day, if one person took an hour or two out of their event, we could run a whole event with different people. Like that is not an issue. So yeah, don't think you have to spend the entire day, working on your vacation. Just help me, like you said, serve feast, or help me make sure that the water barrels are full, things like that.
Hey, Ron, I know you said you have to leave. You got any closing remarks or anything you want to put in before you have to say goodbye?
Yeah, just LARP and Belagarth, both Belagarth and Ides. And I sent some links to this panel out to a few of my Ides friends, and I hope that they saw it. But both Belagarth and Ides have impacted my life in huge ways. I've met some of my closest friends through both of those games, and honestly, something that I don't really think that we've touched on is sometimes it's just fun to put on a different persona for a little bit, whether that be kind of the rough and tumble mercenary bodyguard, or the Khajiit, or the Viking shipwright who wasn't very good at riding ships.
I didn't say I wasn't good. I was just better with a sword.
Okay.
I can build a damn ship.
Sure. I've got my Belagarth personas as well. Like I said, Gorath was just better put together as a character, but I've got my edgy vampire, Aaron, who is my main Belagarth persona. But I've also got I have Pikel the Goblin. It's spelled like pickle, but it's Pikel.
That's wonderful.
It's a lot of fun, and you can switch personalities by changing your face paint. And it's a lot of fun, and I recommend everybody try it at least once, because it's a good workout, and if you like theater, there's a strong element of that too, and you will meet friends that you will carry with you for I will probably be friends with Dirtamarian and Vorshin, and even the people I met at Ides, even though that game is no longer going on, I'll probably be friends with them for the rest of my life. So yeah, I think that's it for closing remarks. It was great running a panel with y'all. I hope everybody who watched it's had a good time. This was definitely a unique experience, going from 7 or 8 years of running panels in person to running one on a video stream at a digital convention. Thanks to Mike and the rest of the Aradani crew for giving me a con to do during this ridiculous quarantine. And that's it for me. Nick, Aaron, Gorath, out.
Take care, sir. Thank you.
Something I'd like to add to that is, as far as holding on to these people for the rest of your life. I know people that are in this sport that are 50 plus years old and have been doing this since they were somewhere between 16 and 20. So they've done this literally all their lives. This is what they do. And some of them can still fight, and some of them, they help admin because that's what they can do. I know one guy in particular, he teaches a lot and he has a lot to teach. He's learned a lot, and he makes a really big difference in our community. You can definitely find somewhere to be regardless of your age and what you can and can't do. Like, there's definitely a place for everybody, and it is more than possible to keep this the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Something we haven't really touched on. We talk a lot about fighting, and the game is combat driven. But there are plenty of people in our game who do not ever fight. They have joined, they enjoy the community, they enjoy being around everybody, but they do not step foot on the field ever. Some of them never even fight on the sidelines. Like, it's just, fighting is not what draws them to the sport. There are many people driven there because it's a place they can show off their skill sets, non-fighting skill sets. Many people who go there to show off the beautiful costuming that they do, and they enjoy that the culture, the time period that we are in. You know, people who love Ren fairs sit right at home, and they find it, hey, I can dress up every weekend. I don't have to wait for the Ren fair, which is once a year, to come around. There are people who make their job, their living, off of the community. The armor that we wear, the clothing that we wear, the weapons that we fight with, it can all be homemade. You can make it all yourself. But there are also groups out there who spend their lives making it and selling it to us. It's much easier for many people to buy a new shirt than it is to learn how to make one. And you know, you spend that money to buy one, and it's going to last a lot longer. At least I made it, than a shirt I would ever make. But you have those people who prefer to make it. The weapons, same thing. You know, you can make a weapon yourself, but sometimes it's cheaper, or just you're going to get a better quality item, or at least a more consistent item by buying it. There are people who come and just volunteer. There's people who come and just watch. They've been watching for years, and that's all they do. They just enjoy watching everybody, talking with everybody, getting to know everybody. So that's one thing that I think we didn't really cover, is you can participate even if you don't want to swing a sword. And it's a welcome part. It's not an odd part out. We talk about having 500 people at some of our weekend events. Easily 100 of those people probably won't fight. It's a good portion of our community that is there just to enjoy the other aspects of the community.
I mean, we have photographers too, and they're wonderful. That's great. And another thing to add to the 500 plus people, some of the people are kids. Like, people bring their whole families and come and hang out, camp for the weekend. Like, there's more than an opportunity to find a lifestyle in that and never have to pick up a sword.
We had a couple of questions that I want to touch base on. Sadly, Mike left before we got to answer his question, but I think he was asking it more to give us a talking point. Mike's been out, and he's fought with us a couple of times. That's how I know Mike, is from him coming out. He actually joined Sam Flagel, who comes out pretty regularly. So Sam got Mike to come out, and then Mike's come a couple of times to fight with us, and that's how we've got to know him. I think the community does a lot. So his question specifically is, how do we handle new people and people who are hesitant to join us? How do we get them out there? What do we get them to do? There's two sides, and I'll start with the people who are already present. So people who have worked up the courage to come and check us out. They haven't walked up and talked to us. They just are like, these guys meet at this park. I'm gonna go look at them. I spend a portion of my Sunday, every Sunday, walking around to the people who I've noticed watching us. I bring over a sword, I bring over a shield, and then I usually bring over a smaller fighter, a younger fighter, a female fighter, somebody that's going to be a little less intimidating. Sometimes I can be very intimidating looking after a hard day of fighting. So I try to bring over, somebody not so giant, because I want to encourage them to come and fight. And sometimes it's easier to not fight the guy wearing armor and has a giant shield and sword. It's easier to fight the person who's smaller than you. People are often hesitant to pick up the sword, but often once I get them to pick up the sword through quick conversation, hey, hold it, touch it, just see what it's about, see what it's like. This is what it's made out of, feel how cool that is. Once you get them swinging, usually most people are sold. If you're interested enough to make a trip out there, most of the time we just got to get you to hit somebody or get hit, and then you're sold. You may not fight that Sunday, but it's gonna be in your mind. You're gonna think about it a lot. I think what makes it easier, some people think like, oh, you're never gonna get these people to fight. What makes it easy is most of the people that join have a nerdy side. We have a couple of people who are just not interested in anything except fighting. They come from a martial arts background. They don't have any kind of nerdy-ish side to them, and they still join us. But a lot of the people we see coming out are the nerdier people. And we all have that nerdy side to us. So, we talk fighting for a minute, but then we start talking about video games or board games or movies, making that connection of like, hey, we're real people. We're normal, ordinary, everyday people. Sometimes you talk about work just to, connect on that level. So once we start connecting and getting them out there, it's easy to get people out. And then I'm not afraid either when I'm out there talking to just walk away. I don't try to pressure anybody. I put a little bit of pressure on, hey, you should hit your friend, or, I won't give him a sword, you should hit him, to encourage him to get swinging. Because really, once you start swinging, you get addicted. Yeah. But not being afraid to walk away. I keep business cards on my person at all times for the game. Because when you're talking to a stranger, you can go, yeah, it's just durdamarian.com, let me spell it out for you. They're not going to remember it. Hand them something that's got our website on there, our Facebook page on there, make it easy for them to come and find us later. And we're at the same place every single Sunday, which makes it easy to find us.
Yeah, for the past 30 years.
Yep. And the other side is people who aren't out there yet, people who find us online, people who are friends of a friend. Most of the time, friends don't have trouble getting other friends out there. If they're the type of person who's gonna do it, conversations or pictures are all it's going to take to get somebody out there. If you've come out a couple of times and fought, you can get your friends who would truly be interested in it to come out. You will be able to get them over those hesitant things. I often encourage people to come to some of our bigger practices for new people. Hey, if you're only going to get them out one time, like wait a month, bring them out on this day. Like this is the day that you want to bring them out. We practice every Sunday, but we all have real lives outside of practice. So someday there may be 20 people there. If the weather is turning and maybe it's Easter weekend, there may be 5 people out there. Obviously right now we're not practicing at all because of COVID. But even, last year, a lot of the dedicated people would be at MTech right now, hanging out with people, introducing people to the game. If the weather turns, we're already got our dedicated people somewhere. So you see those small practices, but like we have about twice a year, we do fun little, I shouldn't say little, big events, big practices at our normal field. We do our season opener, which is in April every year, where it's kind of like hey, the cold weather's behind us. It's officially, spring. Let's get out there. And we usually have about 100 people who come out for the day and fight. We cook food, we grill out, or we buy something depending on what our numbers are feeling like. And we run a much more organized day. There's, you sign in, we have special practice, like special combats that we'll do. And there's just a lot of people out. So those are kind of the best days to bring people. Then we do one later in the year. We do our Independence Sleigh for the July 4th weekend. Same thing. We just invite a bunch of people out. We bring food. We get everybody together. So if you're going to bring people, those are some of the best ones. We have weekend-long events in May and September that are truly amazing to watch. But because we have to rent space for those and we have to feed people, those are not free. And it can be a bit overwhelming. So I don't always recommend that being someone's first experience, unless they just love camping. And then, hey, it's a camping trip with a cool scenery.
Right.
But otherwise, that's how I feel the easiest way to get people out. Mitz had a question about most important skills that you've developed. I know we kind of talked about that earlier, but definitely, do you want to hit on maybe your biggest skill you've picked up?
Sure. I think a lot of what you said from being in leadership positions applies there. I think the most important things I've picked up is saying a concise yes or no and standing your ground, learning what you can and can't do on the fly. But even just how to herd cats, like dealing with 500 people and organizing, this is going to happen at this time and we need to be able to coordinate that and actually pulling it off, or as close as you're going to anyways. Like things like that, being able to look at something that has totally gone sideways and going, okay, so we're going to do this, this, and this instead, and watch it go off without a hitch and nobody even realized that anything was wrong to begin with. Like nobody ever knew we had an issue. Being able to do those kinds of things and it should be normal now. I think you talked about it earlier, putting Dirtamarian service on your resume. Like I've done that before. I've sat and talked about that. People are like, what is this organization you help with? Well, this is what I've done with my weekends, but this is what we had to do to make it successful. That is probably the most important things I've gotten out of it.
Yeah, and I would say I touched on the leadership stuff earlier, but really self-development is probably what I've gained the most. Working on myself, working on my public speaking skills, which clearly are the best. But really just self-control, I guess, is how I was trying to say that. Talked earlier, when you're on the field fighting people in the heat and things go awry, somebody hits you in the face or someone hits you in the junk, it happens. Hitting people in the face is against the rules. So not only do you feel almost kind of cheated, but you're in pain sometimes. And as I was saying, is I really developed it or learned the skill set being in a leadership role, because I know that my reactions are going to be watched twice as hard as anybody else on the field. If I get hit in the face and I start screaming at people, then that becomes the new acceptable way to handle being hit in the face. So learning how to just be so self-aware of my actions at all times, knowing that people are judging me as the standard, has really allowed me to take that into the rest of life. I talked earlier about how it's helped me as a parent, just on a field with lots of people, not everybody's going to watch you. Not everybody cares what you're doing. Not everybody even knows that you're in charge of things. But when you're a parent, your kid knows you're in charge of things. They're going to take every little thing you do, and that is the standard. Well, dad slapped the cat because it bit him, so I can slap cats when they bite me, or I'll generalize it and I can slap cats whenever they're annoying. So learning how to realize you're on display and that your actions are the norm has really helped me raising a kid. When the cat is annoying, then you have to handle it well and when the kid's annoying, you have to handle it well. So that's the biggest skill that I've taken away from the game. So you got anything else? I feel like we've kind of covered everything we wanted to talk about.
I think we have to a degree. Trying to think. Yeah, the only thing I knew to add was you were talking about earlier, helping people get out there. I don't know how many times I've said, just try it. Hey, just do it this one time. I'll stop. I will leave you alone. And 9 times out of 10, that's enough. And that's literally what happened to me when I started. But I don't know, guys. Like, this probably isn't a good idea. We'll try it once. Spar me once. If you hate it, I'll never ask you to do it again. So that is definitely a thing. I will say fighting for me is an amazing outlet. Sometimes when I'm frustrated with life, I've had a long work week, that kind of thing, it is nice to be able to put that aggression somewhere productive. It's not always an easy thing to find as an adult, something where it's acceptable to be aggressive and get some of that energy out. And that has helped me immensely in my life. That is very much a big part of me. It's very much something I'm missing at the moment. But yeah, like things like that, even the competition, like training for, I want to be really good at this next tournament. It gives me a goal, gives me something to do, makes me push myself. And to go about doing that, a lot of it is being physically fit, which is wonderful. Like that's a great thing to strive for. So even if I'm not the best guy at the tournament, like working out and working on my stamina and going to the gym and doing those things was definitely not for nothing. So like that helped me in general much less, and I had a lot of fun. So it just gives me I won't say arbitrary goals, but it'll give me a goal to work towards that also helps with something else. It's kind of like telling a kid, hey, if you go do X, Y, and Z, like I'll get you whatever. Well, that's great and all. The kid doesn't care about what X, Y, and Z was. They want the reward at the end. It's similar to that. Like I don't have to think about, well, I gotta go to the gym again, run 2 miles on the treadmill, and I'm over it. I get to go to the gym again, and here in the next couple of months, I'm gonna win that tournament. So it helps with just where your mindset is. It can be helpful tricking yourself to do good things for yourself.
Awesome. Well, unless anybody's got any last minute questions, are there any questions in there that were directed just to panelists? I can't see those right now.
Let's see. I think we have gone over everything that was asked.
Perfect. All right, guys, if you have any additional questions, I'm going to be hanging out in the Discord later, maybe not so actively in there, but post questions, hit us up on Facebook or check us out at NashvilleHomefighting.com. And I appreciate you guys joining us today.
Hey, I don't know that you want to, but I did find one question we did miss.
Sure, go ahead.
We kind of talked about it before, but Mitz asked about what made you decide that this is what you wanted to do for long term as far as being in the fighting world.
Broad strokes. I have, for most of my life, enjoyed sword fighting of some kind. Whether it's just me and a friend out back with some practice swords hitting each other and being stupid about it, looking back. Or like I said, when I first found the group, when I was going to college, I didn't necessarily enjoy the community at that time, but I enjoyed the combat, the structure, the rule sets. And that's where I first started, is just like, hey, I like that somebody has really thought this through and has rules on how combat works and what weapons are safe. What really got me, though, is when I moved to Tennessee and joined Dirty seeing the structure that was set up here, I'm a very structured person. If I had plans for every minute of every day of my life, I'd probably be a really happy guy. And seeing how well structured Dirty is was the real selling point. So obviously, I'd been a lifetime of enjoying combat. I've always enjoyed swinging weapons. So to have a safe, structured, organized way to do it was what I was looking for at that time. It was really what I wanted. But the community from there, right? So the community has really been the selling point. I wouldn't go somewhere every week and hang out with people that were a really loose group of people. So being welcomed in, being able to have a large number of people to pick through and find those that you like most was awesome. So on top of it being exactly what I was looking for, the community and its openness is really what sold me.
Yeah, I think that was a big part for me too. The community definitely is what made me stay. Some of the friends I have here they're my brothers and my sisters, and I call them as such. Like there isn't anything they can call me up and ask me to do tomorrow that I'd say no to. I would figure it out. And it's a really big part of it. Although, like I was saying earlier, I really think initially what was, yeah, I want to do this, I want to keep doing this, is the ability to put my aggression in something that was constructive. As an adult, I've dealt with anger issues all my life, and trying to figure out how to put that somewhere has been difficult. So to find something that worked so successfully was huge to me. So I was willing to figure out, how do we do this and how do we make it work? And I can be fairly competitive by nature too, and being able to satisfy that in a healthy way as well was a very big deal to me.
Awesome. This was being streamed on YouTube as well. So if you go to Aradani's YouTube channel, you can watch this, re-listen to any part, share it with friends if you found anything specifically awesome that you wanted to share. Again, I would encourage everybody to go to Aradani's website as well and check out any other panels that you might be interested in that are happening today. And maybe we can do this again sometime next year. We'll see. But I appreciate everybody for joining us, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We definitely couldn't have done it without anybody, so we appreciate it. I know everybody in the con is grateful for you guys coming and hanging out. So I hope you find other things to get into today and you have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.